Man, I'm so ready for my coffee this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I feel like the babies got up so many times last night.
Yes, I am a zombie. These mugs are very pretty, babe.
Thanks, you gave them to me for Valentine's Day.
Yes, I remember.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
I like them. So what's your plan for today?
Trying to keep babies alive.
I have a girl coming over for lunch who we follow each other on Instagram, but I've never actually met her in real life.
Okay.
So it's crazy how the world works that way now, right? You have like people you kind of know or you think you know, but you don't actually know.
Like you only know them through the screen.
Right, and like obviously some people are very similar to what they are online, and then some people are totally different people. So who knows what that'll be like, but from initial reaction, we seem to have a ton in common. She's got a daughter and they just started homeschooling. Her husband is a stay-at-home dad. They're
Nice.
Christians. She has some sort of business, so I don't exactly know what her business is. I'm curious to talk to her a little bit about that today. But we're gonna be making some lunch together. And one of my favorite recipes that the kids love is cauliflower soup. So
I like that recipe.
Yeah, the kids like it too, and it's a great way to kind of hide some vegetables. So we're gonna make some cauliflower soup and a really great salad with some homemade ranch dressing. I'm gonna use some of your sourdough and make some homemade croutons.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Hello, Pumpkin. She wants your hat, I think. Good morning.
What are you excited to talk to her about?
I noticed she used to be an NFL cheerleader, so I'm really curious. You know, not everybody might not agree with this, but cheerleaders definitely are like professional athletes. The athleticism that goes into that, the amount of training that they do, the commitment. So I'm really curious, like what skills were transferable to that and how she feels like that made her who she is today.
Well, I hope you have a great time with her, babe. Have a good day.
You too. You wanna take this one?
Okay, let's go.
Okay, Kelly, today we are gonna make an amazing cauliflower soup, which I know not everybody, initially they're like, cauliflower soup, are you sure? So when I had my first daughter, I had my baby shower at this like bougie resort in the woods in Tennessee. And one of the things they served was cauliflower soup.
I love it.
And I'm usually a picky eater. So when they told us that's what was on the menu, I was like, I don't know that I'm gonna eat that. And it turned out to be one of the like best tasting thing ever. It's like an elevated potato soup. That daughter's 13 now. So I have tried for years to figure out how to make really good cauliflower soup. And I think we finally have it.
Okay,
So
I love it.
we're gonna make cauliflower soup with some homemade ranch, well, semi-homemade ranch dressing and some croutons from scratch. Cause I feel like even if you have a basic salad, adding in some homemade croutons makes everything better.
All right, let's do it.
So in your house, you're not traditionally the one who cooks, right?
No, ma'am.
So do you want to make bacon or do you want to chop some stuff up?
I mean, do you trust me making bacon in your house? Do we have the fire alarms ready? I'm just gonna follow your instructions. So
Okay. Let's start with, how about you be in charge of the croutons and I'll walk you through it. So let's start with, we're gonna get some melted butter.
Okay.
And I feel like this is literally the only thing we use the microwave for at this point. We tried years ago to stop using a microwave because it's just not the healthiest thing. But I don't like getting the pot out to melt the butter.
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
an extra dirty dish.
Yeah.
You and I have a bunch of mutual friends. We live in the same area, but we've never actually met in person before. I don't know how that happened.
I know. And I like pulled up here today and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're right in this area all the time because Madison's dance studio is like around the corner and we're in Meisner.
Yes,
we're
and you
in
can walk to
all
Meisner
the
from
time.
here.
Yeah.
And we actually do quite a bit of the same stuff, I think. I know that you were a professional cheerleader.
I was.
And you still have the beautiful makeup skills from that.
Oh, every time
I see your videos, I'm like, Kelly's makeup's perfect. Every time she does this.
Oh my gosh. If you saw my makeup routine, which Madison, my daughter who's here watching us, and my husband, and actually my team make fun of me because I put on my makeup in the car in like 30 seconds. I'm so bad.
You're a pro because
I'm so bad.
Perfect.
I literally am in the car. I'll be going to an event, literally speaking at an event, and I will have my makeup in my purse, and I'll do my makeup in the car, lashes and everything, as I'm like walking in.
Okay, so I feel like that's important to point out because I think a lot of people who own businesses and are moms, you're like, I don't have an hour to spend in the bathroom to get ready and look like this.
No. Well, not only that, but it's like, if you have an hour, is that how you want to spend it?
No.
So for me, the answer is no. I want to spend 5 minutes or less on my makeup. And she watched me do my makeup before we came here today. It was probably about 3 minutes.
I love it. It looks perfect.
Thanks.
Okay, so you're going to be stirring up the croutons with your spoon.
Cool.
While we put
let's do it.
some butter in here.
Okay.
So go ahead and stir it up. The goal is to coat all of them. And you might be thinking, holy crap, Heather, that is a ton of butter. It is, but you're only gonna need a few of these.
Yeah, okay. It's looking good.
And then we're gonna add in some salt, some pepper, some garlic powder, and some onion powder while we do it.
Some onion and garlic is like, garlic makes everything better.
And
I just have to say that.
I 100% agree. I think it's in everything we're cooking. And I feel like when you make these, you want to over season them a little bit because you're only getting a small bite of it.
Yeah.
And if you under season them, they're just going to taste like crunchy bread on top of your salad. So I'm going to do that. We grab us a pan. So I always wonder this about you when I see your videos. How do you feel like, don't take offense to this, do you think professional cheerleaders are considered a professional athlete? Kinda, right?
Well, yeah.
You're training like you are?
The training to be an NFL cheerleader. Now, first I'll say, when I was on the team, I was 18. I was the youngest girl on the team. And I was in college and working 4 other jobs at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
So I was in school, I was an NFL cheerleader, I was a cocktail server, I was teaching aerobics, babysitting, I was doing all these other things. But what was really incredible that a lot of people don't know is that most of the NFL cheerleaders have a full-time career. So for me, that was
not paid that well.
That was the first time I ever met really fierce, badass women. So literally there were scientists on my team, there were teachers, there were real estate investors.
Why do you think they have the reputation of the opposite of that, since they're not?
Because people just like to be,
mean
people
to
like to
women.
be
well, it's
how
also
they
a
are.
limiting belief, right?
Yeah. It 100% is.
Like,
and the other thing is people love to be like, oh, girls are so catty. The first thing that people always ask me about that time is, oh, what were the girls like? And what they really mean was, oh, were the girls nasty, catty, whatever. The nicest, most supportive women you will ever imagine.
Well, what's the cheerleading Dallas Cowboy show? That doesn't help.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right?
But that's a reality show.
Yeah.
So if people are taking their life guidance from a reality show, they're probably, right? Okay, what should I be doing right now? I feel like I should be contributing to this situation.
You're doing great. We're gonna wait on the oven to heat up a little bit.
Perfect.
We've added some Parmesan cheese to our croutons. Nice. Also, we always shred our own cheese because bagged cheese is so bad for you.
I learned that recently and I have been faithfully getting blocks of cheese.
So I was shredding all of this stuff by hand, and with a family of 7, I was spending so much freaking time shredding it because even your carrots, you don't wanna buy shredded. So I'm gonna show you something that's redneck and fun at the same time. This is my Amazon box of cheese shredding goodies.
Oh, wow, okay.
I need to get a whole lot better looking box, but this is real life, right? So it was taking me forever, especially when we would make salads, because I was shredding cheese and I was shredding carrots. And then like if we were making something else that needed it, it was literally just taking forever. So for Valentine's Day, my husband bought me a electric cheese grater, which I didn't even know existed.
Maddie might be into that. Madison likes to cook. She loves being in the kitchen.
Let me get us a bowl to do it. Anyway, so you have this professional cheerleading career all while you're doing college and a million different jobs. How do you progress from there?
Well, you know, what was interesting for me, I was going to school for communications, which in other words, I have no idea what I want to do. I want to talk to people and not be behind a desk working in spreadsheets. That's what I knew. And working for the NFL was really the first time that I had the experience of doing public appearances, public speaking, working with CEOs, interacting in the boxes with, you know, people that were high net worth individuals, all those things. So for me, I got a lot of experience being in the public eye, interacting with all different people, from the average Joe to the Fortune 500 CEO.
So I love that you're talking about that, because I feel like cheerleading gets this reputation, like you're talking about, of like yuppie, and in reality, it's a lot of preparation for some things that can be really great skills.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, anything athletic, people don't realize, that NFL cheerleading, those women are athletes. They either come from a high-level competitive dance background or a high-level competitive cheer background. And so like game days for us were like a 14-hour day. We would show up very early in the morning. We would have on-field rehearsal. Then we would go back, shower, do hair and makeup, prep, do everything. Then we would be on the field cheering for 4 hours.
The commitment and the dedication that goes to that. There's no
The
instant
rehearsals are
gratification.
2-3 times a week for 5 hours at a time. You maybe had like a couple quick little water breaks. It's athletics, it's sport. All right, now that's pretty amazing.
Quick, easy.
So tell me all the things you use this for.
What all?
Yeah,
Literally any vegetable.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of different attachments.
yeah, that's cool.
But I feel like the cheese and the carrots are what saved me the most time, because it's what we were doing all the time. And then you got like perfect salad carrots.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful, love it.
Yay, salad carrots. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the bacon going so we'll be able to put that on our salad here pretty quickly. And one of the things I always do when I'm cooking bacon, my mom actually taught me this. I remember I used to fry bacon the regular way everybody else does, and it would take forever to cook, and then you're trying to like make this mess and crumble it up. So my mom's like, Heather, why aren't you just cutting up the bacon with a pair of scissors before you start cooking it? I'm like, duh.
Smart.
I don't know why I didn't think of that beforehand. So we're gonna go ahead and cut the bacon up before.
I'm making sure that Madison's getting all these tips because she cooks a lot more than I do, so she can follow your lead on that.
How'd you get your daughter involved in cooking?
She loves it. She watches baking shows all the time. She loves the Food Network. Like she loves learning how to cook.
Does she
She's just always enjoyed it.
She help her dad in the kitchen?
Not really. She likes to bake more than cook. So he does more of the dinners. She's more like, let's make a cake. Let's make, dessert.
I feel like that's where they start. My kids all start because they want the sweets, right? They want to eat the muffin. They want to eat the cake. And so it's a really good place for them to start.
No, but this is super smart. Yeah.
Anyway, and so we're going to peel that away so we get this and set it aside for our salads a little bit later. So you're in college, you're doing the cheerleader thing. How long did that last?
I did that. I cheered on the team for 2 years, and then I was like going into my junior year, and I was like, okay, I need to like really get serious about job search and all of those things. So I actually pivoted and I interviewed to intern with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
So I switched from cheering to interning. I interned with their marketing department, their communications department, their game day, and their training camp.
What a huge blessing, like the in that you have with that.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. Yeah, it was absolutely, and it was every single element of it. And for me, like now being a business owner and a CEO.
The transferable skills, right?
Absolutely. Like people don't realize.
And
like,
as a kid, you don't know what you're learning. Not that you're a kid, but kind of.
Yeah,
at 20,
no,
21,
absolutely.
You don't even realize what you're learning.
No, and for me, having that experience of working for the NFL, like their culture, like whatever you believe or whatever you like or don't like about the Eagles or the NFL or whatever, like their people are literally obsessed. They will do anything to make the organization great,
culture of
to represent it well, to serve and support the mission. And it really taught me about culture, like in a company, like company culture. And for me now, having a big team and having multiple companies, like I still think about those things.
And so how do you use those skills to build the culture that you have in your company?
Well, I think it's about one, like being clear on the values and making sure that you're casting the vision all the time. And I think that's one of the key things that the NFL does, that the Philadelphia Eagles do. They're like on purpose all the time, vision first, mission first all the time. And I think that's huge because when you're managing a company or a team, you're gonna have good days and bad days. You're gonna have wins and losses. You're gonna have highs and lows. You're gonna have ups and downs. So if not a culture, that is really driven by mission, you're gonna have a really hard time driving consistent high performance when things are up and down all the time, right?
So I talk about with my students doing all things with intention, and I feel like exactly what you're talking about is part of that.
Yes.
And so how does that play into, I feel like one of the big topics that all of the higher level people that I talk to, we're always talking about hiring.
Yeah.
And so how does your culture kind of spill over into your hiring? How are you using that in your hiring practices?
Well, it's everything, right? Because your culture is knowing even the kind of person that you should be hiring. And a lot of people hire people for skills, and that's completely the wrong way to hire in 90% of the time, right? There are some instances where you have to hire for a really specific skill set.
Right, of course, a doctor,
but that is rare.
Attorney, yeah.
That is rare. Most of the time, you need to hire for someone that is going to have the DNA of the organization, and that's unique to you. They have to have the work ethic, they have to have the tenacity, they have to have their own personal goals. Should I be like flipping this or something?
Sure.
And so I think having that at the forefront all the time is just super, super critical, because otherwise you won't even bring in the right people to begin with, let alone, if you got the right person, be able to keep them.
So if you were gonna give us like 3 hiring tips related to making sure somebody's a good culture fit, what would that look like?
Well, first one is know the core values of your culture. And that's the first step that most people miss. They don't even have a clear outline of who do we want to be, what's our mission, in terms of how. There has to be a circle, and inside the circle are the core values of the company and how you interact, behave, and engage with one another, the market, and the world. And so there has to be a clear picture of what's inside the circle and what's outside the circle. And before someone gets hired, they should already know that. So you know there's a code of conduct, there's a code of ethics, there's a way that we treat one another, there's a way we interact with the world, there's a way we do things, there's a way we treat our customers, right? All of those things. So I would say really knowing your core values and making sure that that's a part of the interview process. I see people a lot of times, they post a job, and the job is a list of must have this, must have that.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what every job posting is.
You're creating someone that's going to come in and check boxes and do tasks for you, versus recruiting someone that aligns with the mission, vision, and goals, and is a person that is aligned with who is going to thrive in your environment and representing your brand, and who understands the mentality of the brand. 2 very different things. So number 1, core values. Number 2, focus on the culture and the type of person, not the tasks, because tasks can all be taught, right? Work ethic, values, drive, internal locus of control cannot be taught, right? So by the time someone's old enough to get a job working for you, they either have those things or they don't have those things. Hence why you and I both homeschool.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to do formation before our kids go out.
So talk to us about some of those things when you're looking for that in somebody who's coming and interviewing with you. How do you identify somebody who has drive in an interview, for example?
So here's the best way. So number 1, past behavior always indicates future behavior. Always, 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 always. Past behavior always indicates future.
Listen, y'all, I know today's episode is inspiring, but inspiration alone will never carry us to our ultimate goals. That's why I started the Society of Entrepreneurial Women. It's a mastermind for high-performing female investors and entrepreneurs who are living their lives unapologetically. In a world where most people don't get us, or they try to keep us confined in a small box, the Society exists to turn off the brakes and set you free. We have weekly calls covering investing, wealth building, health, relationships, family, and a whole lot more. We have small tribes to hold each other accountable to our goals. We have in-person, ladies-only retreats to disconnect and drive each other towards our dreams. And most importantly, this is a community where you can be unapologetically you. Celebrate your wins, scream your successes from the top of the rooftop, become best friends with women who get you. We're 3 years in, and I can honestly say my best friends today are all from the Society. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
What people think is they see something that doesn't make sense, doesn't add up, or doesn't align, and so they listen to someone's story about that, and they're like, oh, okay, well, that actually makes sense, Heather. Okay, no worries, I'll look the other way this time because I really like you. I really like you. You have a great personality. We got along really well in the interview. I like your brand. I like how you look. I like how you speak, all those things, right? And then what happens is that one break in the core, that one crack in the surface is always the reason why the person doesn't work out. So you need to not listen to the story. You need to assess the behavior, right? Really basic. So one of the first things I learned, I did staffing and recruiting for 15 years. And one of the first things that I learned was about behavioral event interview questions. Behavioral event interview questions are all about assessing how did someone interact in a situation in the past, because how they interacted in the past is how they're going to interact in the future. Let's say you're hiring an entry-level candidate that has no work experience except they went to college and had some part-time jobs. You might say, well, how would I know how they're going to do in this full-time career doing sales for me? Well, I'll tell you. Were they hired as a hostess and then they went from being a hostess to a server to a shift leader to a part-time manager? Or did they sit as a hostess for 4 years?
Did they progress through the positions?
Everything you need to know. And it's the same thing. I hired a girl once that her only experience was working at a pizza shop. But guess what? She went from, serving the pizza to taking on leadership tasks and responsibilities, this, that, and the other. She came into my company. She did a beautiful job. She was with me for years and years. Behavioral event interview questions. And I think the number one thing I would say to people is stick to the plan. Because everybody has a plan until they start interviewing someone and then they start getting along with them. And they're like, oh, but I really like this person and I really need to fill this job.
Okay, this goes with so many aspects of life, right? Because I own about 300 rental properties.
Yes.
And I tell my team this all the time. Screen every tenant.
Yes.
I know there's sob stories. I know that
Yes.
there's extenuating circumstances, but here's the thing. We have to pay the bills, otherwise nobody has a job and nobody has a place to live. So we have to follow these rules because every time we don't,
the exception will break you.
Exactly.
And if you talk, and I'm sure it's been this way with your tenants, but also your team. So it's what you just said. It applies to every area of life. When you break your own rules, you will always pay the price.
Yes.
When you break your own rules, you'll always pay the price. So one, you need to know, well, what are my rules? Put them in writing. Put them in writing. What are your rules? What are the lessons that you learned? What are the mistakes that you made that you don't want to do again? What are the things that are essential and necessary for a tenant to be someone that is going to stay, pay their bills, not be an issue, renew, all of those things, right? So stick to the plan, know what your rules are, right? And know that you'll pay the price for every exception that you make. You will pay the price.
Whether it's employees,
tenants, listen,
dating.
Even with opportunities. Maybe you've had this with real estate. I've had this with clients. You're talking to someone, you're like, wow, this is a great opportunity. I'm so excited. This could move my business forward. This could be a great property. Or this could be a great deal. Or this could be a great collaborator. But there's this one little thing that doesn't seem exactly right. And you kind of have that little spidey sense, but everything else seems amazing. And you're like, but the opportunity, right? And so what do? You overlook that spidey sense, AKA intuition, AKA gift from God to protect us. And when we don't use the gift from God that we were given to protect us and we hit the override because we want to capitalize on the opportunity, instead of taking that gift that we're being given of intuition, we pay tenfold and we do it over and over and over again, right?
And I feel like this happens in all areas of life.
All areas of life.
Like we just talked about.
All
it's screening
areas of
tenants,
life.
it's hiring people, it's freaking dating, right? With dating, how many red flags do we need to see before we're like, this probably wasn't a good idea?
It's making the excuse when you see something once and assuming that it won't happen again, and it always does. So these are the things, right? And I always say, I think the two most important things to build a very peaceful and profitable business are talent and tenure. Talent, the right people to build the dream, the people that can lead your organization into the future and help you to successfully enact the vision. And tenure is that deep foundation of people that have an encyclopedic knowledge of the culture, the mission, the vision, the goals, the functionality, the SOPs, the KPIs, how you go to market, what your deliverables are. What should I be doing here right now?
You're doing great.
Okay, I'm just going to keep
the bacon.
I'm caring for the bacon right now.
The most important part.
The bacon is very important. Okay.
Okay, so we're going to transfer the bacon from here over onto the paper towels.
Perfect. So I think that talent and tenure are our two most important things.
And tell us what you mean by tenure.
Tenure is the depth of time and knowledge and expertise that your team has, right? A healthy amount of turnover is important. You want to retain about 85% of people.
Okay.
But in order to focus on retention, you have to have the right people to begin with that you should be retaining.
So I also feel like a lot of people, they miss that part. They think when people leave, they get fired, that it's a bad thing.
No, because the goal is not to stay the same. You need to have a healthy amount of turnover, otherwise the organization stagnates. One thing that I learned, they used to send me over to do turnarounds in branches that were underperforming when I was in corporate. They would be like, okay, this branch has been in a downward spiral for 5 years. Kelly, go in and turn it around.
And when you say branch, a branch of what?
So I managed branches all over the country for staffing and recruiting. So
Okay.
each branch was like its own little business, right? They all had their own staff, their own P&L, their own clients. They functioned like an independent business. So they would send me into all these little businesses to turn around the businesses, right? So one of the things that you would notice in the businesses that were underperforming for years and years and years is that they had no turnover. But one of the things that would also happen in the businesses that weren't performing is that they had really high turnover. It's in the middle where you have healthy tenure, you have great talent, but the business is always up leveling, that you can get peak performance and you can keep achieving peak performance, right? So it's like you want to keep your good people, you want to invest in them, you want to grow them, you want to help them reach their personal goals. But a lot of times business owners keep the wrong people when they know they're the wrong people, and they will literally sink the ship.
One of the groups inside my women's mastermind, the women make over $1 million a year. Those are the girls who are, not newbies, right?
Yeah.
They're already actively running a successable business.
Yeah.
And I feel like hiring and firing is one of our most common conversations.
100%. Same in my mastermind. I have people from 2 million to 25 million. And it's
the biggest part of
constant,
it,
right? Because it doesn't get easier to have to let someone go.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think sometimes it gets harder because as you go, you learn how to be a better leader, which means you've invested way more. You've spent more time and energy.
But you're delaying the inevitable, right?
100%.
Because the inevitable gets worse and worse the longer you wait.
And
it's
you're
harder.
only seeing the tip of the iceberg, right? I'm
Yeah.
sure you talk to your girls about this all the time. It's like, Heather, you see that someone's not performing. You see that ABC XYZ is not happening the way it should be. You're like, I think I gotta let this person go. You delay it, you finally do it. And then what do you realize? It was 100 times worse. Because now you're not seeing the tip of the iceberg. Now you're seeing what was really going on underneath the surface. And you're like, wow, how much damage did that just do to my business?
So
right?
for the entrepreneur who's listening and they're like, I really need to let this person go, but I don't even know where to start. The negative effects I feel like it's gonna have on my business. I'm gonna be stuck doing all these things on my own. I'm so uncomfortable having that conversation. I don't know how they're gonna react. You know, they have kids. What do you recommend?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's just go back before we go forward. We were each given spiritual gifts from God, and each of us were meant to use those spiritual gifts in a really specific way, right? And so if someone's in a job working for you and they are so severely underperforming that you're now having stress and strain and struggle about this person and maybe losing sleep over and you know they need to go, are you doing them service by keeping them in a job where they are clearly not using their spiritual gifts because they wouldn't be struggling the way that they're struggling?
We're checking the croutons. Okay, you want us to come look at them?
Yeah.
So you want them to be a little
Ooh, they look
crispy,
amazing.
otherwise they're gonna taste too much like bread, right? You know how your crouton,
Yeah.
like the perfect crouton, I feel like is crunchy, but just a little bit soft. So we're gonna give them
Love it.
2 more minutes. Let's get a little bit crunchier now that they're starting to get brown. I'm gonna set the timer so that I don't forget, because we get to talking and I always forget. We put some homemade bone broth in
Love it.
the pan. You can totally use store-bought broth, but we save the kids love chicken legs, and at holidays we make big turkeys. We always save the bone in a bag in the freezer, and then we make homemade bone broth to cook with, and it has tons of health benefits like collagen and all kinds of fun stuff. So
You're amazing.
we're gonna start with our bone broth. We're gonna cut up some cauliflower and an onion as well as some potatoes, and we're gonna let them steam in the pot and get really smushy, and then we're gonna add a few things after that. So as we're talking about hiring, you're exactly right. And these again are the most common conversations that we're hearing. And you're right. You're like,
You're keeping someone trapped
yes,
in a situation where as bad as you feel firing them, they feel quitting. And someone has to be the bigger person, and it's you, because you're the leader, right? You're the leader. So you have
always
to lead.
you.
You have to lead.
It's always you.
Yes, it is always you, right? So I think that that's the first thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that we have so much dread about making the changes, but ultimately, usually it's addition through subtraction, right? You've probably had that experience. You want me to start on these?
Sure.
Do you
Let me
dice them or what?
Yep,
do you,
I'm gonna grab you a cutting board.
Show me the style that you're.
Yep, I'm gonna grab you a cutting board.
Yeah, so I mean, how do you start? Where do you start? Well, you open honest communication. You start with open honest communication. So you start by having a really clear dialogue about where they are versus where they need to be, and being very transparent with them about the changes that you need to see right away in order for them to sustain that role. And you give them an opportunity to fix it. And some people will and some people won't. But your responsibility as a leader is open, honest communication.
What does an opportunity to fix it look like to you?
I think that it depends on the person, but I think working with someone over a 30 to 45 day period, usually, where you set specific targets and specific deliverables, and they have an opportunity to show that they can achieve them, right? And I think that obviously it's also our responsibility to document their results and be clear with them about what we're seeing versus what we need to be seeing in the role. I think a lot of leaders don't clearly or openly communicate with people. I think a lot of leaders don't openly and honestly communicate with people. And then, that's not fair either, right?
Right, because then they're surprised and they're like
there should never be a surprise.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know anything was wrong.
It should, by the time you're having a termination conversation, it should be so obvious and so they know that's exactly what the conversation is, because you already had 5 conversations previously about the results that they're delivering and what you need to see, right?
And so for those people out there who are like, oh, I don't want to do this. Most people don't get any better. You told us earlier when we were talking about hiring, you're like, people already have the habits they're going to have. Do you think those kinds of performance plans actually work?
Sometimes, rarely, but it's still your responsibility. Our responsibility as leaders is open, honest communication. So if you're the leader that has seen someone underperform for 6 months and not said anything, and now you want to just fire them, that's your fault. That's not okay. If you're a leader and you see that someone's underperforming and you're coaching them and you're not seeing progress on a weekly basis, you have to communicate that with them. You have to say to them, hey, Heather, we've been working really hard on this. I'm not seeing the progress. I need to see you progress.
You told me you were going to do X, Y, Z. This is
but I need to see,
right.
So what happens is leaders get pissed and they don't say anything and they don't do anything. And then finally they just want to rip the Band-Aid off and fire the person. It's yeah, but where was the coaching? Where was the feedback? Where was the opportunity to turn around? All of those things. So I think it's just doing the right thing as a leader and being proactive. Right?
So we're going to stop and we're going to cut them about this size.
Okay, perfect.
So that they don't take forever. Because when you put a baked potato in the oven, it takes forever.
So
right.
Yes.
So we're going to cut them about this size.
Perfect.
So going back to that conversation, you're doing the cheerleader thing in college. You get tons of skills from this. You graduate, you get this job with a staffing company, and you've gotten all these great skills. How do you go from there to owning your own business?
Yeah, well, I was really, really blessed on multiple fronts. Number one, the job that I ended up landing in, as I was mentioning earlier, it's a Fortune 500 company that is international and has hundreds and hundreds of locations all around the world. And I was promoted 7 times in 8 years. So I ended up going from being a producer to managing many branches from New York City, White Plains, New York, all the way down through the Carolinas, and then doing guest trainings all over the country. And
where were you living at the time?
I was living in Westchester, Pennsylvania.
Where are you from?
The Northeast, from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah. And so for me, I was really blessed because I had already learned how to build and run a business, because that's what I was already doing. Everything that I learned about business, I learned from my corporate career, because I wasn't working in a corporate headquarters.
And we should talk about that, right? I think social media gives corporate jobs a bad rap.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I talk about it all the time. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And they talk about you don't want to do this right after college. You need to be an entrepreneur. One of my first jobs out of college was at Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Yeah.
And as dumb as people think of that job.
No, I know.
You learn so many skills.
Much.
They take you through this management training program.
I'm very familiar.
You're paid based off of the performance of the store that you're managing.
Their model is very similar to the model of the company that I work for.
Exactly. So you get all of these transferable skills. Does the job suck a little bit when you first come out of college because you feel like maybe I'm not doing a lot? Yes, but that's because you don't realize the skills that you're learning.
1,000%.
Skills that would take you so much longer if you had to stumble through that on your own,
1,000.
starting a business at 20 years old.
I talk about it all the time. I think, number one, I think it's stupid and ridiculous to discredit your past work experience because it's so important. It's what gives context to whatever you're doing now. But also, yeah, I think that's really doing people a disservice to say, you know, oh, don't get a job or don't ever work for a company or don't work for a corporation, because clearly a $1 billion company has figured something out that maybe you should try to learn
and
from.
it doesn't mean that we think everything they do is amazing, but there are
100%.
for sure some transferable skills.
100%.
And if nothing, you learn what you don't want to do.
I still use them every day. I mean, that's how I learned how to read a P&L. It's how I learned how to set and lead to KPIs. It's how I learned how to build and manage and coach a sales team. It's how I learned how to interview and recruit and hire talent. It's how I learned how to build career progression plans. I mean, most of what I do today came from that.
The base level of your system started there.
Yes, 100%.
That's
100%.
awesome. I love that you say that, because I feel like, again, social media gives it such a bad rap that like somebody to get a job. I actually think it's really great to start out in that type of job and environment. So you leave the staffing company, and what happens next?
I stayed at the staffing company, and I was the #1 SVP in the country for years, and I knew that my soul was dying and that I needed to go do something with my life to help people. And so I told my boss what I was gonna do. And I said, I understand if you need to fire me, but I said, I need to do this for my life. I have to do this. I said, I will build at night and I will build on the weekends, and I will keep my #1 spot, and you can fire me. And you can fire me if my performance drops, and I understand, like, if you can't keep me. And they kept me, and they let me. And I built my business publicly for over 5 years. I built my business to 7 figures while I was still in my corporate executive job. And they let me build because I kept my performance and I kept my promise to them. And I still, you know, gave 110%, you know, while I was there. And
I feel like that's not talked about enough either. You're hitting on such great points, because even with real estate investing, because of the people on the internet that make it seem like it's this get rich quick, we're gonna leave our jobs immediately, or you're gonna be financially free by 23. It make people keeping their jobs while they're building their business.
I say it all the time.
It's like such a massive support, because being able to keep that cash you're bringing in the beginning to put back into the business.
It's why I was able to do that.
And be supported by your job.
I say this all the time, and this is why, like, I feel like people need to, like, use their brains and dig a little bit deeper than, like, the platitudes of the internet.
We should mention there's people who do that, but then they're crappy employees at the same time.
Yes.
Like balancing the job that you're supposed to be doing with.
Well, if you're doing that, then you have to be overperforming in your job. Like, I was the #1. I continued to perform at #1, meaning I was over delivering on my promise to the organization. If you're going to be a crappy employee and not deliver on your promise to the organization, like, that's not okay. You should be fired, you know? So it's a different situation. But to your point, yes, like, for anyone that's considering starting real estate, considering starting their own business, I always tell people, like, keep your day job, because it allows you to invest in getting help. It allows you to invest in advertising.
Because
how small do you want them?
Just cut
Just
in
like
half.
halves?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, because even though people act like you get rich overnight, you don't.
No.
And being able to use your W-2 job to support you while you're growing this business
1,000%. It's so key.
Is the difference in people who, like, succeed and have to give up and go back and get a job.
It truly is. And I've coached so many people that have blown through all of their savings. They've put themselves in such a compromised and desperate position in their life because they went all in too soon and they didn't give themselves a runway. And what a lot of people don't understand is that even when you start making money in your business, it doesn't matter what kind of business it is, even when you start making money, if you want the business to grow, you have to be able to have money to put back into the business.
Yeah, you can't keep all the money right away.
If you put yourself in a position where you have to take every dollar out of the business in order to survive, then you're going to kill the business. You're killing the business, because instead of you, it's like a plant. Instead of you watering the plant and giving the plant sunshine and giving it, you know, nutrients so that it can grow and grow and grow big and strong and have the roots expand, you're ripping the roots out of the ground every month because you're like, I need to get paid. right? And I just think a lot of people don't.
Well, we're not saying profit isn't important, because while profit is important.
Profit is super important, but what I'm saying is do you want to keep 100% of 50 cents, or do you want to keep 50% of $50,000, right? Because if you're trying to squeak every dollar out of this itty bitty little baby business that is just getting started versus having a balanced approach of reinvesting for growth, you're going to kill it.
So for the person out there who's like, I'm dying to start my business, I don't want to be in this corporate culture anymore, just like you were feeling, how would you tell them to get started?
On the side at night. I mean, listen, we are so unbelievably blessed beyond belief. I don't know about you, but for me, when I was learning sales, I literally had to get in my car and drive business to business. I sat every morning and I made cold calls for 4 hours every morning, okay? So the fact that we
there was no dialing system.
I mean, I put pants and shoes on today. This is a big deal, right? Most of the time, what are we? We're barefoot in our own homes with a t-shirt on, okay, and we get to sit on our phones and we DM people on the internet and do all these things, right? So think about that. How blessed and lucky we are. So if I was sitting here today and I was working a job and I was like, I'm dying to start my own business, I want to get off the ground, just start at night. Start on the weekends, use your phone, go live, get on the internet, start putting content out, start posting, start putting videos up, do stories. Like, it costs nothing.
Speaking of content, you have a really popular podcast.
Thank you.
How long have you been doing that?
I have been doing it for 10 years.
Shut up.
And I have never missed a week.
Oh my gosh.
I have
and
over
even that,
1,100 episodes.
the dedication that takes.
Never missed a week.
It's not an overnight thing.
No. Nothing great happens overnight, because God has to mold us and mature us into the people that are capable of the dream that we're trying to accomplish, and that takes time.
100%.
Because as much as we'd like to think of ourselves as fast learners, we're not.
Even the people who are like, I hope I wake up and my video has gone viral.
You actually don't, though.
No.
That's the thing.
And if you wake up and your video has gone viral, you have no idea how to be the person who makes content every day. And
most of those people, by the way, that engage with your viral video are not ideal clients, and they're not going to be buyers. So that's what people don't understand. Like, there's so much power in the slow burn, consistency over time.
And whether it's your business or your social media, it gives you the time to build the systems and processes to keep the business in place.
Yes.
So you're at the staffing company, you're building your own business. What type of business were you building?
My first company, which I still have today.
Okay.
It's a high touch coaching and consulting company.
Okay.
So I basically, what I wanted to do was I wanted to take all of the sales growth strategy and all of the work that I had learned over 15 years, and I wanted to teach small business owners how to put systems and strategies in place to grow their sales. So that's where I started. I started coming into businesses and saying, let me help you implement a sales system, hire a sales team, get KPIs in place, build a database, and grow. Because small business owners are like, hi, we're in business. And so that's where I started, and it's evolved now, where we help people kind of like end-to-end scale their business. And our specialization in that company, because I have a few, is really just helping people to scale their businesses from 6 to 7 to 8 figures. And we do that helping them with systems, team, sales, marketing, and infrastructure.
And so you started this company how long ago?
In 2012.
Oh wow, it was the year I had my first child.
2012.
That's crazy to think about. You've had this life where I assume as a professional athlete, as a cheerleader, you're having to exercise, you're training, you're going to school, you're working, you're building a company.
Yeah.
When did you get married?
Oh, okay, so this is crazy. I just texted my husband this like 2 nights ago. So we've been together 20 years.
Shut up.
My husband and I have been together 20 years, yes.
I love that.
And we got married, though. We were together for years before we got married. So let me just think on the math. So we started dating in 2006. We got married in 2010.
Okay.
We had Madison in 2014.
Okay.
So we really took our time, and we enjoyed dating, and we enjoyed being engaged, and we even took our time like after we got married, before we had Madison, which I think was really nice and special. And yeah, it was a crazy life, and it still is a crazy life, and I love it.
And so I feel like when you have a baby, I don't think people word it this way, because there are people obviously who can't have kids and they struggle to get pregnant, and anytime I feel like we say anything I don't even want to say negative, but like that's related to a struggle with like parenting or being pregnant, that people are like, no, you should be grateful because not everybody gets to have this, which I do agree with, but it's also okay to say this is hard and to not act like and make other people feel like they're alone in that.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you go from, you've lived this, it's not a selfish life, but it's a life that revolves around all the things you want to do.
Yeah.
You almost have to like die to self
Yeah.
to become a mom, because your needs, even you having to pee, does not come first anymore. Like you wanting to
remember breastfeeding, and I told Billy, I'm like, I feel like this is like my 6th job.
Yes.
It's like they're on the boob or you're carrying the pump around, and it's a whole thing, right? Yeah, it is.
I feel like people don't talk enough about how you literally have to become this new person.
Yeah.
Who's going to, while you're amazing as is, but the woman that is not the same woman who's going to be a really great mom.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like, and I think this is never talked about, but this was something that was intentional for Billy and I, which is that we waited a long time. When I got pregnant with Madison and finally had Madison, I was like ready. I was like,
how old were you?
So I guess I was 30 turning 31, 30,
which back
31.
then was older, right?
Which was
now
older.
Is young.
At that time.
Yeah,
at
now
that
is
time,
young.
That was considered older.
All
right?
your girlfriends probably already had kids.
Yeah, but we were very intentional about that. So for me, I feel like I was very mentally prepared to become that person.
You also had built a business that I assume by then was giving you some flexibility.
Not when she was born.
Okay.
So I started the company in 2012, still in my corporate job. So I was working still 60 hours a week in my corporate job. So I was just kind of getting going. So I had the business for basically a year before I got pregnant with Madison.
Wow. So you're still in the building phase.
Yeah. So I was very early. I was just at the point when I found out that I was pregnant with her that it was like starting to take off. So that was crazy. So I retired my husband. I don't know if we talked about that, but
we did.
So we actually had decided we've done everything.
We have such similar lives. How do we not know each other before?
I know. Same. I'm so happy I'm so happy we're finally doing this.
I think he's retired right now, though, being home with 5 kids.
No, he's definitely, and I shouldn't say retired because Billy, and I'm sure your husband is the same way, he does so much.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't have this life.
Yeah.
It
doesn't have a traditional job
It doesn't
anymore.
have a traditional job, but he runs our home, he cooks our meals, he homeschools Madison, he does all the traditional subjects so that I can do entrepreneurship, Christianity, all the investing, all the things that I want to work with her on. I get to do that because he carries the weight of, he does all the traditional subjects, which is
so for the mom who's thinking about starting this business, she's like, I'm already overcommitted, I'm already busy, how do I fit this in? My husband can't stay home and be that person, which for both of us, our husbands weren't staying home when we started doing this. That came later. It was part of the blessing in this life,
absolutely.
Right?
It's the greatest blessing ever. And I think this is another podcast for another day, but I do feel like something that has impacted society very severely is having 2 people working in the home. And I think that, and when I say in the home, I mean a married couple where both people are trying to pursue a career outside of the home. That's a whole nother conversation for another day.
I also think it's important to point out, and I would get so much hate from this, but hiring a full-time nanny is not the goal. I think that people who don't have that think that it's the goal.
No.
But I was a single mom for 6 years. I was married for almost 10 years. My ex-husband had an affair. We got divorced when I was 8 months pregnant with my 3rd child. I already owned my first RV park. And so I'm running this RV park. I've got 3 babies under 5, and I had to hire help.
Yeah.
And those moments that you miss when they're little is not the goal.
Even when they're older is not the goal. There's nothing more important. There's nothing. I know you've been homeschooling since the beginning. We just started, so this was our first year. We just committed for year 2, and it's honestly like the greatest blessing of my entire life. And every day I thank God, and I'm like, I cannot believe that I have the privilege of getting this time.
Okay, but let's talk about that. Blessings don't mean they're easy either.
No,
because having all of my kids here all day. There are multiple times throughout the day that you're like, it would be so much easier to send them to school.
1,000%. Everything would be easier. But like Billy and I say that all the time, like it's so much easier to ship your kids off for 8 hours a day, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is, right? So homeschooling is not easy, but homeschooling gives you the gift of being a part of the formation of your child.
Also, when you have multiple kids, because with one child it's a little bit different, but with multiple kids, they become like best friends with each other.
Yeah.
And you're truly building this bond within your family that you don't otherwise get.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing experience for them.
Yeah. It's really cool because there's like an explosion of the homeschool, especially in Florida now, and even with some of the legislation and some of the things that are happening with school choice and all of that, they're making it so much more accessible and easier. But anyway, to your point, that's another podcast. To your point about the nanny, the goal is not to have someone else raise your child.
And there's nothing wrong with doing that, right?
And there's nothing wrong with having help. I think having help is important.
Yes.
Right? But I think the goal is building a business that allows you to prioritize the things that you value in life.
And I think that starts with baby steps, right?
Yeah.
I had to have that when I first
100%.
started because you are building that business.
100%.
But the goal is putting those like systems and processes in place to get yourself out little bits at a time.
Yeah.
And for me, that started with like, okay, I'm going to end work at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to work on Fridays.
Yeah.
And it's like little bits that you start to remove yourself
100%.
from. And then you retire your husband, right?
100%.
Or yourself, depending on
yourself. I think it's really important. Like, we have so many choices now. Like, we're so privileged to live in a time where like we just have so many options for everything, right? So what Billy and I always say is like, our job is to make the decisions that are right for our family, which might be completely wrong for this person or that person or that person. We have to make those. And I think that whether it's you decide that you're going to step away from a career, or you decide that you're going to help your spouse to step away from a career.
And also there's seasons, right?
And
none of that means that it's forever.
There's seasons for everything. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think just questioning everything. Like questioning, like, why am I doing this?
Okay, so when we're talking to that mom who's like, I'm ready to make a change, Kelly. How do I have no extra time. I'm already overcommitted. How do I start making those baby steps?
Yeah.
Because at nighttime, I'm making dinner. I'm having to clean up the house. I'm bathing babies.
Yeah.
That's the only time I get with my kids.
Yeah. So this is what I always tell people, right? There's blue chip activities in life, and you have to know what your blue chips are, right? So for me, a blue chip is playing taco, goat, chicken, cheese, pizza with Madison, a card game at night. That's a blue chip activity for me. High value, quality time together. What's not a blue chip activity is cleaning the bathroom or loading the dishwasher or cleaning up the house. So I hire people to do the things that I don't consider blue chip activities so that I can prioritize the things that are. And I think a lot of women look at all tasks as being equal and saying, well, I have to be the one that does this and I have to be the one that does that. And I need to, we don't need to do everything. We don't need to be everything.
I think it's also giving yourself permission to do that.
Yeah.
Because there's some like leftover thoughts, I guess, or responsibilities we think we have from like the 60s or 50s, 40s, whatever it was, when everyone didn't work. And they think these are like my responsibilities in the house.
Well,
those were responsibilities before women didn't have jobs.
Yes. So I actually mapped this out, to your point, because this is such an incredibly important topic. I mapped those out and I sent that to my clients actually, and I showed them that there are 40 to 60 hours of extra responsibilities in the home every single week that if both of you are working, someone still needs to do. So either you're gonna make yourself an insane person and burn yourself out and be up until midnight every night doing those things, or you're gonna say, I'm gonna work and I'm gonna prioritize time with my spouse and time with my children.
Well, and some of it's letting it go too, right?
1000%.
While this looks super clean, my house does not look like this on a regular basis.
And you have to be okay with prioritizing, I wanna make a meal with my children, or I wanna bake something, or we're gonna go and have a family day and we're gonna do this together. But it is 40 to 60 hours a week. And to your point, what has happened is that the lines have gotten blurred because it used to be that there was a homemaker and then there was someone that there was a provider and there was a homemaker. And now in a lot of homes, there's two providers, but who's the homemaker? And a lot of times the woman now becomes the homemaker and the provider. It's impossible. So it's figuring out what are your blue chips. There's not a lot of blue chips. To me, it's like faith, it's time with your family, it's your fitness, like some type of health protocol to keep yourself able to function and be vibrant, right? So figuring out what those things are for you, and to your point, being willing to let some other things go.
Speaking of health, let's talk about our healthy soup here. So we've got our healthy soup here, which includes our onions, our potatoes, and our cauliflower that we cooked inside of our bone broth. We're gonna transfer it out, we're getting the broth out, over into either a stainless steel bowl or a glass bowl. And then this doesn't look very appetizing as is, but we are gonna put a few items in it and then puree it. For those of you who have kids that don't necessarily eat a ton of vegetables, most of our kids will eat mashed potatoes. And so it's really easy to hide vegetables in this. I've added carrots to this before if your kids don't eat a lot of vegetables, because once you puree it, you can't see them. And once we get it in here, we're gonna add a little bit of cream. You can use half and half cream, whole milk, whatever you've got. Just a little bit to give it that creamy consistency. A little bit of butter for some flavor. If you're a vegetarian, you could omit the bouillon, but we're gonna put a little bit of chicken bouillon in here as well. Some salt and pepper, and we'll be ready to eat our lunch. So when we're talking about kind of homemaking and splitting those responsibilities, I feel like in my first marriage, that's exactly what it was. I was doing all of those homemaking responsibilities, trying to raise the kids. I already owned my first property, which wasn't like a house, it was an RV park, which is an active business. There's like 500 people there at any given time. So that in itself was a full-time job then. And remember how we talked about, I feel like you have to die to yourself when you have a baby? I think I went through that process, but my ex-husband didn't. And that made it really hard to still stay married to each other, right? You can, as much as you can want somebody to do that, you can't make them. And so I saw this divorce attorney one time talking about more women are filing for divorce now than ever because they feel like, I'm making the money, I'm raising the kids, I'm taking care of the house. What is it that you're doing? And as much as that sounds like man-hating, I think some men just don't know what they should be doing. And it's those conversations that you have going into marriage about expectations. Who's gonna work? Who's gonna take care of kids? My previous guest, she had her first baby 2.5 years ago, and she was talking about all the things she didn't know that she thought she would be doing, but like that's out the window once you actually have kids. That can be the case with marriage too, but having that like base conversation of like whose responsibilities are what up front, because it's easy when like you both have jobs and maybe there's a few household responsibilities, right? But you throw a baby or two in there and like it just blows everything up. As anybody watching like us make these meals from scratch and you're like, how the heck does Heather run all these businesses and doing this? I am so blessed. My husband now, he actually made y'all some sourdough bread to take home with you. And like he like helps cook, he helps with the house, he's taking care of the kids during the day, making sure they're getting their homeschooling done. Like truly sharing those responsibilities not only is biblical, because people like to mess that part up from the biblical standpoint. It's also super healthy for everybody, the kids too. It is, absolutely. And I mean, I look at Billy and like how he is with Madison, and I'm like, man, like she's gonna have very high expectations now for who she chooses to be with, right? Which she should, and that's what we want, right? So yeah, but I do think open communication around roles in the family is really, really important. And I think there's not enough conversation about that, like early on. Just communicating around who's gonna do what, and you know, I think that because who's gonna do what is not what we're talking about. Like, we don't think it's like the man's responsibility, the woman's responsibility. No. It's literally figuring out what your plan is that works for everybody. I call it like having a game plan, like at home, like a family plan, right? And I feel like it looks different for everyone in terms of what works and what your strengths are. Like, Billy's a great cook. I'm a horrible cook. If I tried to be the cook in the family, it wouldn't go well because we'd be throwing our food out all the time. We don't want that, right? So like, he naturally does that. And then there's certain things that I naturally do. And like, we get to use our strengths. Well, it's back to those spiritual gifts you were talking about. Like, who has which gift? Taste it and see if we need to add anything. You want to taste it? Sure. It is very hot. It's really good. I would probably put more salt in it, but I love cauliflower. Me too. And most people, I think, when they make a soup like this, they make it creamier and whiter because they peel their potatoes. There's so much nutrients in the potatoes that I'd rather have the spots in my soup from the potato skins than lose the nutrients just to make it look prettier. So you've retired Billy. He's at home more with your daughter. So in this phase, what's something that you're excited about? Like you have so many different things going on, and y'all are new to homeschooling. What are you working on that you're most excited about right now?
Well, I mean, I'm most excited that Madison is getting to be exposed to extraordinary people like you and get to witness leadership, big thinking, big ideas. You know, she comes to my events with me. She comes to speaking engagements with me. She came to the news, a TV appearance with me recently.
My
she comes
kids go to everything
like
too.
Yeah, and so I'm loving the experience of being able to build legacy in real time by transferring knowledge and experiences and beliefs, because none of us know how long we have, you know. And I think that a lot of people live their life, especially when they've had a level of success, and they're like, well, I'll do that when I retire. I'll make time for family when I retire. I'll make time for, you know, all of those things when. And I'm really excited that we've made the choice to do that now.
I agree with you, because usually it's once your kids are older and moved out of the house and it's not as impactful.
Yeah, exactly.
Ladies, it's time to redefine the conference experience with the Society of Entrepreneurial Women Retreats. Step inside a world tailored for women just like you, where you can lead, learn, and unwind in style. Our retreats offer everything from insightful investing sessions to fun activities like salsa dancing, boat cruises, food tours, and so much more, ensuring you come back not just inspired, but truly refreshed. Join a community that celebrates you wholly and supports your every endeavor. Ready for a retreat that changes the game? Visit the link in our show notes and find out how you can be part of this exclusive experience.
So we kind of made the salad dressing from scratch. You can either make like a mayonnaise base from scratch, or you can buy like some organic mayonnaise and that's your base. And then we add salt, pepper, garlic, and onion powder, fresh dill, and pickle juice. The pickle juice, because
I love pickles.
Me too. I could just eat jars of them. But the base of it is the vinegar and all those kinds of things that go.
Yeah.
So you get that like flavor from the fermentation of the pickles added into your ranch dressing.
Love it.
And it makes it amazing.
So good.
So,
Thank you.
welcome. Thanks for helping me cook.
Thank you for the cooking lesson.
So when we're talking about what you're most excited about and you're getting these opportunities to homeschool and spend more time with your daughter, what do you think contributes to being able to walk away that often from your business?
Team. I've been working for 10 years to build talent and tenure on my teams across my companies. And I've built great relationships with people that have grown in my organization, that I've helped them to accomplish their goals. They're helping me accomplish mine. And I think that having a great team where they see your company as a place where they can accomplish things that matter to them, and that they care about your company the way you care about your company, gives you the trust and the autonomy and the freedom to be able to still, I love my company. I work so hard. I don't want to misrepresent anything. I'm all in, you know, but I know that I have the freedom and the autonomy and the ability to trust people that care about the business to lead when I'm not there. And I think that's what it's really all about.
So I see something on your Instagram that almost looks like, do you have team retreats or team?
All the time.
What do y'all do?
I fly people in, I do mentorship days, we do team retreats, we do team meetings, they come to my events. I think that to have the kind of team that I have, where I have team that run entire companies for me, that, you know, that didn't happen quickly, that didn't happen easily, that didn't happen with going through mishires, struggles, losing money, making mistakes. I want to be always very transparent about that, because people can see me say that and think like, oh, you know, she's so lucky that happened. Like, that didn't happen, right? I made that happen over many years of knowing that my North Star was being able to put my faith in my family first, going through all the twists and turns of entrepreneurship, but continuing to pursue that North Star of wanting to do work in the world that matters, that changes people's lives and makes an impact, but being an example, especially for other women, of someone that is in a healthy marriage, a loving relationship, making time for my daughter, and building a business that impacts and helps people.
So when you mentioned that, you've done a lot. Like,
Yeah.
essentially a lot of people's whole bucket list, right?
Yeah.
So do you think you'll ever retire, or what's next for you? How do you think you progress next?
I definitely am not working towards retirement. I save and invest like I'm working towards retirement, but that is not my objective, because my objective is to use my gifts from God to help as many people as possible. So I plan on doing this work for the rest of my life, but I want to be able to do the work in a way like we've been talking about this entire time, right? Where you get to homeschool your kids, you get to travel, you get to make time for your spouse, all of those things. So for me, I'm not working towards retirement, although I am working and saving and investing towards retirement. And I'm doing that primarily because where I would like to go next is doing more faith ministry to the entrepreneurial community, really bringing faith life back into the business world. And I know that that will include doing a lot of work that's not necessarily compensated work, and I'm totally okay with that.
So we should talk about that. I think as Christian entrepreneurs, it is like a fine line that you walk, because when you talk about it on social media, sometimes there are other influencers that use that to make money. And it's sad.
Yeah.
And it makes all of us look bad.
Yeah.
Right. And it definitely does not bring people to Jesus. Right.
Yeah.
It does the opposite.
Yeah.
And so when you think about incorporating that into your business or making a business out of it, I know in my industry as a real estate investor, people don't always agree with Dave Ramsey's methods with no debt, and you know, they think about leveraging money and things like that. But even if you don't agree with his concept of leveraging money, he has done an amazing job of authentically incorporating his faith into his business. So does John Maxwell.
Yeah.
Both like really great examples of Christian entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
How do you see that integrating into the business you have now?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, right? You know, I think that ultimately we have an audience of one, and so we are accountable for our actions and our behaviors, and ultimately that is between you and God, right? So you have to know like what your intent is. You know, there is a difference, I think, between like leveraging faith to sell something or to market something versus sharing faith to lead people back towards God. And I think you need to look at what the difference is for you and what that looks like, you know, and I think everybody has to figure out that path for themselves. But yeah, I just want to be able to put myself in a position that I can do faith ministry and I can do it for free. And you know, the businesses can run and grow, and I don't plan on stopping because I love teaching business. I love teaching people how to build successful businesses. I don't plan to retire, don't plan to stop. But I also have this other part of myself that I've witnessed people go through horrible divorces. I've witnessed people compromise their mental and physical health. I've witnessed people give up everything that actually matters in pursuit of wealth and success. And I want to bring a new success paradigm forward where we reprioritize faith and family in our culture. And I think it's time for that conversation.
So on that topic, I feel like one of the ways that can be put to the wayside is kids in sports. And I know that your daughter is, did you say competitive dance? Which can cause lots of travel for the family. And then there's families who have multiple kids, and you're jumping from multiple sports activity to multiple sport like jobs with conferences that you go to and all the commitments that we have now. How do you balance that with, we're going to show up to church every Sunday, we're going to still have that commitment, but then we've got all these sports for the different kids and the usually two jobs, right? We're balancing the needs of those two jobs. And then you also, some people have friends that aren't inside their business, and they're balancing friendships and seeing the rest of their family.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to decide what matters. You know, today is Holy Thursday, the day we're doing this interview. And guess what? We have a master class tonight for my business. And I said to the president of my company, I said, I'm going to be at Stations of the Cross at 7 o'clock tonight. So she's going to start it, and I'll join her when I get home. And that was it. Like, we were going to have the webinar, you know, earlier in the night, and I said, I'm going to be at Stations of the Cross. It's Holy Week. That's where I'm going to be. You just have to make choices, you know. And what's really cool about life now is that there is a lot of flexibility and freedom. And I do think that if your kids are on a sports team where they're asking you to be somewhere every Sunday morning, that's probably the wrong sports team, right?
Yeah, and it is not a popular opinion. It's not what most people want to hear. And that's not just sports, right? We're not picking on sports only. I say sports because I see so many families dragged in opposite directions with multiple kids in traveling sports and competitive teams.
Yeah.
You know, the husband's going to this state for this weekend, the wife's going to this one. And it's not just those, it's jobs too, right?
1,000%. I sacrificed so much because when I was a single person and when I was working in corporate and I was managing branches all over the country, I was on trains and planes and buses and traveling and hotels and all over the place. And I said, I cannot in a million years imagine being a mother. I won't do it. I won't do it. And I was willing to do whatever it took to get myself out of that situation, to be able to work from home, you know, to do that. So for so many people, they sacrifice so much to put themselves in that situation just to like give it all up, you know?
And so I think it starts with that culture and knowing the things that you're going to live by. We talked about, I decided a long time ago, I'm not going to work on Fridays. My family has fun Fridays and I swear every Friday there is some amazing opportunity. Somebody wants you to be on their podcast. They want you to speak at an event. Like you name it, they ask me to do it on a Friday. And because we have that list of those non-negotiables, you have the ability to say heck yes and heck no to whatever opportunity comes up. And no matter what that opportunity is, if it's on Friday, I have to say heck no. Have to isn't even the right word. I get to say no. Because we have built that life in order to be that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like with family and faith and, you know, all of these choices and all of that, again, it's so personal. But to your point, it's like, it's deciding what actually matters to you. You know, and it's not the same for any of us. And maybe you're a family that goes to mass at 5 o'clock or church or service 5 o'clock on Saturday night, you know what I mean? And maybe Sunday is a day. But yeah, I think what has happened is like, we've gotten to this place culturally, and this is why I want to do the work that I want to do with my life. When you're asking me about like, am I going to retire? Like, I'll never retire. You know, we've gotten to this place culturally where the pendulum has swung so far to the anything goes side that no one's about anything anymore. Like, it's offensive if someone says, yeah, I'm not about that because my family actually prioritizes this, or, you know, we don't do that because we believe in this, or, you know, that's like offensive now that you're like about something. And until people decide that it's more important to them to be about something than to be palatable to every other person on the planet, nothing's gonna change. And we're going to have the mental illness issues that we have, and we're going to have the crises that we have with drugs and alcoholism and the divorce rates and every other thing that's going on. Because when you're not about anything and there's no anchor to anything, that's the byproduct. And it's everywhere in our culture and society. This is probably a whole nother show for another day.
I know, every point you make, I'm like, we could take
it's
this
a longer
conversation.
It's a longer conversation.
It's true. And it makes us feel like we can't say things, or you can't share things, or it's not okay to set those boundaries that we're talking about and saying, no, on Sundays we go to church, so I can't do that. Or even your kids, like you saying, you're gonna have to pick something else because this one travels on Sunday. Not everybody wants to have that fight, essentially, with their kid. It's a lot easier if you can set those in place early. But when you have older kids who are already active in those things, and making those changes can be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, if you have 4 kids and they're all in different sports and you're doing 4 different things, and hey, like, it's good for kids to be in sports. Sports are a great thing. They create, kids learn so much.
But they're not what they were when we were kids.
And
when we were kids and there was a game on Friday night at the school, you had practice every day after school, at the school, and then your parents picked you up after, is a world that doesn't exist anymore. Well, thanks for being here with me today, Kelly.
I loved it. It was great to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Remember, authenticity is your superpower. Stay unapologetically yourself, and let's continue embracing our uniqueness together. Make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss the next episode.